Hey, everybody, and welcome to Gul Dukat Was Right, the confusingly named Star Trek The Next Generation. Wait, sorry. I thought I was on my other podcast for a second here. This is Pete Carroll Was Right, the confusingly named Alabama Football Live show. As always, it's Carter, Ben, and Mitch here to talk all things Alabama football with you. This is obviously my Halloween costume. I am Commander Riker from Star Trek The Next Generation, with whom I share a certain resemblance. So I was busy planning a wedding instead of a Halloween costume this year. So I'm going back with an old standby. But yeah, it's finally there is a reason my wedding was this weekend, and that's because it was the bye week. So finally it's LSU week. And obviously we got a lot of things to talk about. LSU coming in ranked third in the CFP rankings, which not really a surprise. The committee has always seemed to sort of go for the teams that have played a loaded schedule. Although you think about it now, it's like two of LSU's early marquee wins were Auburn and Miami, neither of which is nearly as impressive now as people thought it was at the time. But regardless, they played a very tough schedule. They are 7-1 against that schedule, which, no matter how you feel about them, S&P suggests that there's something closer to a top 15 team than a top 5 team. Regardless, that effort, that 7-1 against that schedule was impressive.
It's not even like their best win is better than Notre Dame's, or at least not in the eyes of the committee. It's not, right? Which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
That I would understand that if they had this amazing win, and Notre Dame didn't really have any really good wins.
I guess you could argue that just in terms of the margin,
that's a good point.
They have they beat Georgia by 20. Although didn't Georgia turn the ball over 4 times?
Yeah, they did, and they are. So their post-game win expectancy for S&P is 79% in that game. Adjusted scoring margin is 8 points. So they played well. They definitely played well. They definitely played better than Georgia. This wasn't like their game against Auburn, for instance, where they absolutely should have lost that game and somehow won that game.
And a quick note about, and because I find myself falling into this trap, and I think it's useful to remind people, those post-game win expectancies don't with turnovers. What'll make those wonky is if you have huge turnover luck, not necessarily big numbers of turnover. If you turn the ball over 5 times, your post-game win expectancy is going to be low because you turn the ball over 5 times. Right. But the turnover,
defenses.
Yeah, right. In terms of actual there's actual fumbles and passes defensed tend to lead to turnovers because breakups tend to lead to interceptions, and over time fumbles even out. So if your team breaks up 14 passes but doesn't get any interceptions in a game, then you had really bad turnover luck there. So
I think for every 4 passes defended, there's supposed to be 1 interception. And then I think it's supposed to be probably 50-50 on fumbles or something. So so that's kind of how that plays out. But so let me ask you guys this to sort of kick us off. Couple big, we'll obviously get into the more specific matchups, but I was thinking before we started the show, I was thinking about some more big picture stuff. So before this week, so Alabama's played 8 games. Would you say that we knew going in with certainty that Alabama was going to win all of the previous 8 games? Or with near certainty?
Yeah.
99% sure and greater, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the first game where they can lose. We agree that they can lose, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So S&P gives I
think it's 74% for Alabama. It has it favored by.
Okay.
With a
expected margin of 11.
Yeah.
So let's start there. Too accurate? Too much credit to LSU? A big adjustment for.
The spread is 14, and spoiler alert for the end of the show, I'm taking Alabama to cover. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Twitter posts suggest that Mitch has literally taken Alabama to cover. So
I didn't say that was my screenshot. I'm not saying it's not my screenshot.
If I bet on Alabama, this is what I do.
This is what.
Carter, they're giving Rice a 2% chance to beat LSU the week before Thanksgiving. So just
Dumb and Dumber.gif right there. So
hey,
you're
2%.
saying there is a chance.
That's right.
I mean, so we're down to a true freshman quarterback because all our other quarterbacks are broken.
That's worked out well for some teams.
And he actually played pretty well against North Texas last week. So things are on the up. And we play UTEP this week, and they haven't won in like 2 years. So, win number 2 is on the way for my Owls.
Win number 2 is on the way, and sometimes mid-major teams or FCS or not FCS, but G5 teams beat LSU, right? Like last year.
Yeah.
So you never know. So 26% for LSU to win the game.
Yeah, one point about that.
11 more.
Say, so the formula for, I think Carter, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when he calculates the point margins, it's like based on is it the overall S&P plus?
Yeah, it's literally just you subtract the underdogs S&P plus from the favorites, and that's the regular margin, and then he has like a 2.5 point adjustment.
Yeah.
For home or 2.5 for home.
Yeah. So and then the actual overall S&P plus is some linear combination of the offense and the defense, or maybe just
I think it's literally addition and subtraction.
So it's probably worth making a point about the defense and like the way it's calculated. So the way he weights, so he's got like the 5 factors, right? And his biggest, like most impactful factor is explosiveness, which Alabama is like 108th in, like in terms of being like really
defensively, right?
Yeah. Okay. Or like maybe they moved up after last week. Yeah, they're 96 now. But that is a function of efficiency. So essentially, like when teams have successful plays, explosiveness is a measure of how good those good plays are.
Right.
But if teams don't have a lot of good plays, like it doesn't really matter as much. So that's one area where I think in Alabama's specific case, I think they're like low asset because like their efficiency is like first or second, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is really like an under discussed aspect of this Alabama team, I think.
Yeah.
Is that like their defense is actually really good. They have this one interesting flaw that Mitch was just touching on, but like overall, like their success rate is 5th in the country on defense. Their marginal efficiency is 6th. So like they're like elite in terms of on a down to down line up and stop you from moving the ball, sense.
And like in terms of that even being a flaw, I would wonder like because it's a function of like, so Alabama doesn't give up a lot of successful plays. So there's already kind of a small sample size right there. And B, he does garbage time adjustments, which probably throws out like every second half play Alabama's had, maybe like all season. So like there's not even really that many plays for like Alabama to have given up explosive plays.
Right. It's weird to me though that like I know like I saw when you posted when you were talking to someone else that like the way he weighted the 5 factors in determining S&P, and I had thought that efficiency was much higher rated because like much higher weighted because one like that is much more replicable. Like S&P has intended to be predictive, and efficiency is much more like it's not as random as explosiveness. Right. And then also like I remember a couple years ago, I think it was 2016, like Alabama was easily number 1 in defensive S&P plus. Like it was it was one of those years. I think it was like their defensive S&P plus was like 6, and number 2 was like 13.
Yeah.
And that year, I remember they were like 125th in explosiveness because they only gave up like one or two successful plays a game and it was like, a bus down the field or something.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know if he has some level of adjustment in terms of like how many explosive plays you give up in terms of the final number. Because like I do think Alabama this year is giving up. I mean, they're like 5th and 6th in success rates rather than 1st or 2nd like they're usually. It does seem to me like they're giving up more like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-yard gains than they have in years past. So I wonder if it's just like this, like a couple years ago, that was sort of an anomaly that they were only giving up, this handful of successful plays that were really huge plays. And this year, like that explosiveness is hurting them more because they are also giving up some 8, 9, 10, like the usual kind of successful plays. So I don't know. I'm just sort of speculating there.
Anyway, that was just a long-winded point about how I would lean towards Alabama, like in terms of the point differential.
So further
is giving. Yeah. So further away from 11.
So maybe something like 15% chance for LSU.
Yeah, maybe 10.
So
I'm gumping a bit there, but yeah.
So what's LSU's path to victory? Because I think that's probably one of the more interesting aspects of this game is just generally like, okay, if they have a 10% chance or they have a 15% chance, well, how does that become realized? So the first thing I'm curious what you guys think is, do they have a better chance to win? Where do they have a chance to win this game in terms of to what scores the game is played? Like, is their path to winning this game if the game is played in the teens, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s? Like, where do we find the most likely LSU victory?
It's got to be low scoring, right? Like, and especially that, I mean, they've got to, because
it relies on their best.
Yeah.
If it's low scoring, then you're relying on LSU's best half of their team to play well, right?
Like if it gets into a track meet, yeah, I mean that's exactly it. But like if it gets into a track meet, like there's no way you can say that you consistently trust Joe Burrow to match Tua score for score. It's got to be a situation where, I mean, I think they have to win the turnover battle and win it significantly. Like this can't be they get one interception and don't turn the ball over. I don't think that's enough. I think they need to win the turnover battle by a significant margin. I think they need to make a decent number of explosive plays, like 1 to 2 per quarter at least. And then I think they need to, we'll talk more about what they're going to do on defense. Right. They need to stop the run. And on standard downs, they need to have their corners just lock down the Alabama receivers. And then hopefully they get some pressure on passing downs when they're actually bothering to, be a little more exotic in their looks.
Mitch, do you agree that the way they win this game, so that's probably like high teens, low 20s or so?
Like maybe like 2017, 1917, 21-17, something like that.
Is that where you see an LSU victory too if it happens?
Yeah, I mean, because that probably means Tua got hurt, but
but that changes it. Let's say that Tua getting hurt. If Tua's hurt, especially if it's early, that substantially increases LSU's chances to win the game, I think. But let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say
how is that even possible? I find it hard to believe that they're in the teens with.
Then is it more likely that they hit a bunch of big plays, make some plays outside the X's and O's, score a non-offensive touchdown, win the turnover battle crazy, and somehow walk out of there like 38-35 winners or something?
I think their path to victory is somehow playing a really slow game, some sort of ball control game where they limit the number of possessions that Alabama can have, like doing like onside kicks and that becomes difficult though with the sort of ball control game becomes, like with as inefficient as they are, like that's really tough.
I think the odds. I think that like a high 30s is really, because I just like, I get it that, like, you know, how could, like, the inability to see a scenario in which Joe Burrow scores like in the 30s. Like, I definitely get that. But at the same time, I feel like it's almost less likely to keep Tua to, you know.
Right. Yeah. No.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you think it's more likely that like Alabama scores but less than they usually do, so it's like Alabama's in the like 31 to 35 range, and LSU hits some big plays but then also gets like a pick six, a kick return, a short field off a surprise onside kick, and it ends up in the like 38-ish range.
Because that ball control, slow pace, like efficient game, that seems like almost like the least likely of the outcomes to me, just because, like, if we look at Mitch's tweet here, the biggest discrepancies between these two teams are on efficiency, right? Like, so efficiency on standard downs, the Alabama defense is second in the country. The LSU offense is 97th. It's a 95 spot ranking advantage. Efficiency on passing downs, Alabama's worse. They're 33rd. Still good, but, you know, not great. LSU, 115th. So even worse. Good for an 80. Good for an 82nd spot.
God, how have they been scoring this year? Yeah. What is their offensive S&P plus?
So it's like it's really.
I'm looking at Alabama. I was like second.
So like the point I would make is, I'm not saying I expect them to be able to do that efficiently, but I feel like that's probably, if they are able to do it, the most likely path to victory. Because like the more like, so if they play a lot of big plays, a lot of 3 and outs, if it's a combination of like a lot of 3 and outs and a lot of big plays, that's just increasing the number of possessions that Alabama's getting, which then decreases the impact that potential turnover differences could have. And those, like, you want to limit the number of possessions Alabama has, because the more they get, like, the more likely they are to outscore you.
Right. So okay. Well then, you know, so LSU's approach should reflect, or should LSU's approach should reflect what is their most likely chance to win the game, right? Like, if their most likely path to victory is X, then their game plan should strive to produce X, right? So like, if that's their most likely path to victory, then do we actually expect them to come out and run the ball?
I mean, honestly, I feel like their biggest hope is that what their fans have been saying is true, and that Alabama has actually played a crap schedule and actually isn't all that good. Because that's kind of what you have to hope for. Because like, one, like the I don't know, the two possible strategies here, like the one Ben saying, the high scoring one, that's almost like, surely even LSU's coaches don't believe that they can just sort of produce that number of points in the natural way through the through the offense. So like, I guess you can be aggressive with onside kicks and stuff, which, I mean, if I'm them, I'm doing that kind of stuff, the kind of stuff that can create those outside the X's and O's plays. I think you have to have as much of that up your sleeve as possible for anyone to beat Alabama this year.
Fake punts and all that stuff.
I just can't see the LSU coaches, independent of Alabama, like, given how their team has played this year, I can't see them thinking that high scoring strategy is a viable one for the kind of team that they have.
Right. So I'm trying to see what their offensive footprint is. Okay. So so they run the ball a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They are 31st in standard down run rate. National average is 59.4% of the time. They run the ball 64.7% of the time on standard downs. And they are 22nd in passing down run rate. The national average is 34.3%. they are at 41.1%. So more than 40% of the time they're running the ball on passing downs. That's a lot. I don't think you can do that against Alabama. Maybe you can run the ball on standard downs, but they can't run the ball on 2nd and 10.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't stopped them from trying in the past, but no, I don't think they can.
Well, you trying in the past against Alabama.
Yeah.
But this is different though, right? Like it was one thing to run the ball on 2nd and 10 against Alabama in 2014 or 2016 or even 2012.
Yeah.
But it's a whole nother animal when the quarterback on the other side of the field is Tua, right? And you sort of have to take that into account when you decide how you're going to play. Do we think so? Running the ball 64.7% of the time on standard downs. Do we think that it's going to be roughly there, or are they going to throw the ball a little bit more than they're used to on standard downs?
I think they're going to throw the ball a little bit more than they're used to, but I think that's going to because they're going to be down 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
What about when the game
early in the game? Yeah.
And I think it could be like just trying to run through the air a little bit too. I don't know that it'll be,
Yeah.
So how do they run through the air? Because they don't, so they're going to try to get Alabama off. They run some package plays where they'll throw some screens, right? When they've got numbers out there, they try to do this little short passing game. They like to run a lot of slants, like isolating their bit because they got some size. Like they got some pretty big receivers who can sort of work inside against these corners. So they'll do some of that. They're not really one of the teams. Like I haven't seen a lot where like they'll spread you out and they'll get like these easy 5 or 6 yard throws to tight ends and slot receivers. Which makes it, I think, more difficult for a team like LSU to run through the air, even though I think like that's like the sort of strategy that you need to have. Like when teams have been efficient in the past against Alabama, that's how they're efficient, right? Like they're efficient with the run through the air. Like if you think about like Clemson and spreading you out and just like dunking the ball to Hunter Renfrow 10 times or something, like that's how you remain like even somewhat efficient against Alabama. So I like that. I mean, I think that they'll try to do some of that. How does Alabama stop that? What does Alabama come out and do defensively?
The same things they always do. I mean, it's Saban, right? Unless he's like, unless they.
Alabama against Ole Miss, Saban said after, that they were concerned about the deep ball, and we knew that, we knew that was a concern against Ole Miss was the ability to throw the ball down the field. Saban said afterwards that, in an effort to take away the deep ball, they play a lot of split safety looks. Now, it doesn't mean that they actually like stayed with split safeties after the snap, but they at least showed split safeties before the snap. I don't know if we see that. See, on one hand, I would say, well, LSU's not like they don't have those receivers. They don't have that sort of really, really explosive passing game. But I also don't think they can move the ball without throwing it deep. I mean, I think they're going to throw it deep so much. They threw the ball deep against Georgia like it felt like it was like once every like 3 plays or something.
I mean, so you're thinking essentially, basically the way Tennessee had success on offense, which is, a lot of like slot fades and, YOLO balls, basically.
We've seen like, I think you line up Justin Jefferson in the slot and you throw the ball down the field to him like as often as you can, like get him matched up against, I don't know, like, Shaheem Carter or something and try to get him open down the field. And also, they love, like sort of like the older Alabama teams, like they'll run a lot of play action shot plays out of these tight 2 receiver sets. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. They did that like at least half a dozen times against Georgia. Because, can they run the ball against Alabama? At all? They ran the ball a little bit against Georgia.
Yeah, Interested to see what the stats in that game is.
They had.
I think it kind of. I mean, what's the best running team Alabama's faced? Like A&M, maybe.
Probably.
I mean, I feel like they may want to test it at least to start. I mean, they may very quickly be like, "Yeah, no, we can't do this." But
I think that Alabama's front has been getting better as the season's gone on.
Yes.
I think
and you can say all you want about motivational speeches and motivation and I don't know, effort and all that it doesn't really mean anything, but it does seem like after Arkansas that the inside linebackers have been playing a whole lot better, which helps a lot, I think.
I think Mac's been a different player.
Yeah.
The last two games. And I think like the defensive linemen are playing at a really, really high level. Isaiah Buggs is playing probably the best football he's ever played at Alabama in his season and a half year. Christian Miller's definitely playing. I mean, Christian Miller's playing time was pretty limited before this year, but like he's playing at like a really high level. Obviously, Quinn Williams has been great. I think they're really coming on. Their defensive percentile performance against Arkansas was 28%. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Against Missouri the next week, against a decent offense, it was 92%, and then against Tennessee, it was 66%. But I think the reason it was 66% against Tennessee was just as a result of those big plays. Because from an efficiency standpoint, like they were really imposing their will. They were completely dominating up front. Tennessee had absolutely no chance to run the ball. So I think that Alabama's in a really good place to be able to prevent LSU from running the ball in this game. Like I think LSU, I don't know. I think the backs are pretty good, honestly, but I mean, the backs are averaging. So the top two backs are averaging 4.6 yards per carry and 5 yards per carry. So okay.
I mean, and they're like, I haven't watched a ton of their film, and I am not an offensive line specialist. But taking the stats that we have, LSU's, stuff rate 78th on this is offense. Stuff rate 78th. Standard down line yards per carry 89th. Their offensive line has not been great, if that's what we go by. Standard down sack rate 57th, passing sack rate 87th overall, passing down sack rate 99th. So like if Alabama gets them in passing downs, which they're going to because LSU's offense is really inefficient, I mean, the data we have suggests that LSU doesn't do a great job. I mean, they're going to get after the quarterback. They're going to get some stops up front in the running game. The thing is, our whole discussion is couched in how does LSU do this?
Right.
And the reason we're couching it in those terms is because everything we're looking at says they're not going to.
Yeah. And even on a more basic level, they're 70. I don't know if you mentioned this, but they're 78th in rushing S&P plus. So they're just like not a good running team. And that's different from the LSU teams of the past. Like, usually like, I feel like what usually happens is that LSU is a pretty good running team. And then they play Alabama and it's just a bad matchup for them.
Yeah.
Well, now, not only is it a bad matchup, but they're also not a good running team anymore.
Yeah.
And that is really problematic. I'm not saying this is going to be like a 2016 level mismatch where like LSU didn't even like come remotely close to scoring any points. But I just think without turnovers, I think it's going to be hard. I think that they're going to take a lot of shots. I think the strategy will reflect the fact that they're pretty significant underdogs, but I just can't see it. I really can't. The receivers are pretty good, though. Like, that's the only thing that gives you a little pause, right? Is that the receivers are good. They're big. They're pretty fast. Like, they're matchup issues there. And I think that's what I would hang on to if I was an LSU fan. I would hang on to the fact that, like, these guys are big. They can make plays down the field. They can make they've made contested catches. They made so many contested catches against Georgia. Like, the guys were just making plays. That's what they need, but they need it a lot. They need it more than they got it against Georgia.
Yeah. And that's like, I expect them to hit some of those chunk plays. Like, they've got big receivers, and you take enough of those shots, you're going to hit on some of them. But are they going to do that consistently enough that they can really score to keep up with this Alabama offense? I just don't see really how that's possible.
Because on paper, that is the only matchup issue, right? And Mitch talked about this earlier and suggests that sort of the Alabama's defensive explosiveness is a bit overstated, maybe. But just on paper, like, that is the advantage for the LSU offense, is their ability to be explosive versus Alabama's seeming inability to sort of prevent explosive play. So, I do think that they'll hit a couple, just because I think that there'll be such a concerted effort to do it, and like they've got the talent to. But I don't know. And I mean, what do you guys think of Joe Burrow?
He's LSU quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he's Danny Etling all over again. Well, I don't know. I was going to say, except he can apparently run, but then, like, didn't Danny Etling score like an 80-yard rushing touchdown in the preseason for the Patriots this year?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Danny Etling played well last year against Alabama.
What I was going to say is that's not, like, I don't mean that as a compliment necessarily, but it's not an insult, because Danny Etling was actually a lot better than a lot of people think he was, including most LSU fans. But, like, this dude's completing 53% of his passes on the year. We think that number is going to get higher against Alabama. Like, even conceding that this Alabama defense, while we think it is better maybe than S&P suggests, is not one of the most dominant Alabama defenses across this run, it's still a pretty good defense. And, if he was, I mean, the dude was 15 of 30 for 200 yards and no touchdowns against Georgia. Like,
he made some bad plays too, and somehow ended up with 0 interceptions. He threw like one slant pattern off a Georgia corner's face mask, like just like the guy just didn't put his hands up. Like, I mean, there were some plays that were bad that like really should have resulted in turnovers, and they didn't at all.
Like, it's just this is what drives me insane about. Obviously, I mean, these people are all, either idiots or trolls, but the Bama ain't played nobody crowd. Once they play great defenses, they're not going to look that great. Like, you can tell, if you know anything about football to a certain degree, by watching guys, like,
right,
at least roughly how good they are. Like, it takes a more trained eye to see, more nuanced things, sure. But, like, anyone could watch Tua and think that guy is really, really good. And if you do the same with Joe Burrow,
not so good.
Not that good.
Yeah. Mitch, what do you think?
I was thinking, you asked me about Joe Burrow, and I was like, I wonder if I would rather play like Guarantano, how do you say his Guarantano or Burrow this weekend. So I went to look at Tennessee's offensive S&P plus, because I have not done that this week, or I've not done that yet, and they're like 35th.
Yeah, and they managed they managed 14 points on offense. Yeah. So
Who's when's the last time that Alabama lost to a quarterback as bad as Joe Burrow? Dr. Bo 2014. I mean, Dr. Bo was pretty good. He was pretty good though.
Bo had his moments. even an unlicensed surgeon does the amputation does correctly every once in a while.
And Nick Marshall, in 2013, Nick Marshall like couldn't throw the ball, but like he was just like effective, like in terms of like his running ability and not offense and everything. Like he was dangerous. Jordan Jefferson, maybe 2011.
Jordan Jefferson. Thinking, yeah, no, it's Jordan Jefferson. Which okay, fine, yeah, that was LSU, but like, yeah, let's pretend like the circumstances are the same here.
Yeah,
sure,
a little bit different.
That yeah.
There's a lot of different things about
Tua and 2011 AJ McCarron. I mean, you can't even tell the difference.
Yeah. So I think that Joe Burrow is going to come out and he's going to sling the ball. Like we've seen, like 2016 Danny Etling against Alabama, like he didn't want to throw the ball. He was like very timid. Like I don't think Joe Burrow is going to come out and play timid. I don't think he's going to turn down throws like you see sometimes some quarterbacks do against Alabama and even some LSU quarterbacks where there might be a throw there to be made and they won't make it. Like I think he's gonna try to be like Zach Meckenberger against Alabama. Like Zach tried to make, to his credit, like he tried to make every throw, and he played pretty well. I think that Joe Burrow is going to try to do the same thing. Like I think he's going to come out, no fear, try to make every single throw. And because of that, like on one hand, I think that'll give them a chance to make some plays. But on the other hand, like I think there's going to be some balls that go the other way.
But yeah, also Alabama has picked off a whole lot of passes this year. Yeah, there was also that.
I think he's gonna throw. See, that's the thing, right? Like you were talking about how big thing for LSU is that they need to win the turnover battle, and they probably need to win it significantly. Like a +1 probably doesn't get it done. You want to be looking at like a +3 or something. But in all likelihood, I think Alabama wins the turnover battle.
Yeah.
You guys have any more thoughts on that side of the ball specifically before we get over to the other side?
Good luck.
Yeah. Alabama's good on offense. So looking at Mitch's.
Do you want me to pull it up? Do you want me to?
Yeah. Oh, can we do that on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
I can remember.
That's perfect.
Share my screen. There it is.
Okay.
Let me fix that as the. There we go. Okay. So I should have it to where the stream shows Mitchell's Mitchell's screen.
I think
okay.
Yeah.
And we can't see Mitch at the bottom. We can't also see Mitch at the bottom. That's not probably not.
No, you should be able to. No.
Okay.
Yeah. We can hear you, but we can. Yeah.
I'm still here.
Okay. So, okay. So Alabama is really good on offense. And LSU's good. See, that's kind of the thing, right?
Looking at those stats, I'm kind of surprised that LSU's ranked as high because they're like 8th in defensive S&P plus, right. But the only top 10 stat on there is passing downs explosiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah, which again, that carries a lot of weight.
Yeah,
like the biggest factor.
So how?
I mean, I guess they're pretty good on standard downs efficiency, and if you're good on standard downs efficiency, that means you create passing downs.
Right.
And if you're good at not giving up big plays on passing downs, then that means you're a pretty good defense, I guess.
Yeah. They're just solid. They're like good at everything, right?
Yeah.
The thing, so the first biggest concern for me if I'm LSU, and I see this too, just sort of watching them and the stats back this up, they are not great at getting to the quarterback.
Yeah.
So sack rate here is 85th. Alabama does a good job protecting their quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Which I am so happy about. It's just wonderful. And we talked about this before the season that maybe it'd be great to have an Alabama offensive line that's finally great at pass protecting, and this one is. They're awesome at it, which is great.
So before we sort of get into get into more specifics. The first issue for LSU is that it's going to be really hard to stop Alabama if Tua has a clean pocket.
Yeah.
And I think that he's going to have.
Oh, sorry. Did you want to keep? Oh, my bad.
No, that's okay. No, that's cool. That's cool. I think he's going to have a pretty clean pocket. But so how how do we think the LSU secondary though matches up with the Alabama receivers?
I mean, about as well as anyone can, I think. Like, I mean, we all know Greedy is amazing, and he's actually per PFF graded lower, than Christian Fulton is. And Delpit's one of the best safeties in the SEC. So, yeah. I mean, this is a really strong group. If anyone's gonna do it, I mean, it's these guys. I think the advantage in Alabama's favor, and this depends a bit on if Devontae Smith is fully healthy. But like, if they're fully healthy, I mean, they go 4 deep with like elite. Like Jalen Waddle has like the highest passer rating. It's like when he's targeted, it's like the highest passer rating in the country, like of any wide receiver.
Well, I think the good thing too is that like even if Devontae isn't fully healthy, you can sort of just play. You can play Judy, Waddle, and Ruggs, and then you can use Devontae to sort of spell guys, right?
Yeah.
Devontae will be sort of your 4th guy. The other 3 guys will be your primary guys that you'll play, and then you can use your 4th guy to sort of spell them. So like you can sort of keep him on a snap count. Like you don't even need him. Like you won't lose any effectiveness on offense overall if he just plays like, I don't know, 25 snaps or something, 25 snaps. Like even if he can just give you that, like that'll be great. And then at least you don't need to go into playing guys like I don't know, like Keith or Shavers or something. Like Devontae just plugs in for one of the guys every now and then. And I think
they really didn't do 2 weeks ago. They really just seemed to give Devontae snaps to
Waddle,
a combination of Waddle and Irv. Like
Yeah. It's like there's a very clear drop off after Waddle. And so I think when they have 4 guys available, they want to use those 4 guys. But if one of them goes down or is hampered, then it just becomes a shorten the rotation and use the tight end type it. Like they're not going to maintain that rotation with sort of an inferior player, with all respect to those guys.
Right.
And so keeping in mind that depth, okay, Christian Fulton's going to do a good job most of the time. Greedy is going to do a good job most of the time. Now, guys like Ruggs and Judy, and especially Judy, are going to get free sometimes. I think, like Ben's talked about that. One of the big questions for this game is, can guys like Waddle and Ruggs and Smith consistently separate against press coverage? And we don't know, but I mean, they're good enough players that I'll bet that they can at times. But then, can your 3rd corner consistently cover Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith if he's full go? Can your linebackers consistently cover Irv Smith? I think the depth of Alabama's targets is what really gives them an edge in the passing game here.
And it's not even necessarily your 3rd corner against like Ruggs or Waddle, because like, are they really going to use Greedy to follow Judy into the slot? Like I've seen that suggested somewhere, but like, most teams, I mean, and maybe they will, like, I don't know. But most teams don't do that.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not, I don't know if they're going to be able to sort of get that matchup against Judy that they want, because like Judy's not going to play out wide much, if at all. He's almost always going to be in the slot. And the one thing that I really like about this game is I like that this is 2 weeks off. So, because I think this is the kind of game where you have a feel for what LSU is going to do defensively, at least on standard downs. And then as a coaching staff, you can kind of spend 2 weeks just game planning specifically about formations and about motions and about shifts in order to, just get little leverage in little different areas and kind of get some matchups that you want. And I think you're going to see Alabama, like especially early when they're on script, come out and be able to sort of use some different formations, use some motions, walk some backs and tight ends out wide, and sort of get some really favorable matchups, especially on the inside parts of the formation. And I think that's going to be really tough for LSU. I think
particularly, and you know, this is where Tua comes in, because like you can create those edges all you want, like any great offensive coach, and I think it's fair to say, you know, let's give Mike Locksley some credit for, you know, they've scored on every opening drive possession this year, and a lot of that's on, you know, those plays are always scripted, so like he deserves a fair amount of credit for that, I think. So I feel pretty confident that they're going to come out and have a good script. They're going to, you know, have some man beaters, some motion, some shifts, all that, you know, all these sorts of things that you're talking about. And, you know, it just takes one play where you create a little bit of an edge. Right. And if it's, you know, this has been in Alabama in the past, it's been teams like LSU in the past. Sometimes that edge needs to be a big edge for a college quarterback to take advantage of it. Tua doesn't need a big edge. Yeah. He just needs the guy to have, you know, to be that much open.
Right.
And like, and that's, and even more so, it's like he just needs one of the guys to be that much open.
Yeah. Cause he's not going to miss an open guy. He's not going to, yeah.
Like in the past, like, you know, if you're covering 2 out of the 3 guys pretty well, there's a good chance, you know,
the quarterbacks
may not have found him, but that's really not the case here. And what I think presents such a big challenge for the LSU DBs is like, maybe individually they're each better than the Alabama receivers, but they all have to be better than each receiver on every play, which is just such a tough ask.
There was a great piece on The Athletic this week. There were 2 pieces on Tua on the same day, and one of them was like a sort of a, you know, personal profile about his family and stuff by Chantel Jennings. Really good piece. And then the other one was like talking to coaches and stuff by Bruce Feldman. And in the Feldman piece, he said he talked to a defensive coach for a team that Alabama's played this season. He said they had one play where they used a blitz that they had never put on film. Like they just pulled it from an NFL team that week and ran it, and they blitzed like the I think it was the corner, the boundary corner, and the safety. And he was like, we had never put that on film before, and the guy just read it immediately. Like he said, like Tua's reads shouldn't have even taken him to that side of the field where he made the completion. He was like, the hot read should have been over here. Like he should have, when he saw the blitz coming, he should have gone this way, but he went that way and just destroyed us.
He's good.
He's special.
But you know, the one, so a lot of reasons to feel good about Alabama's ability to throw the ball here. Before we get into their ability to run the ball, one thing though is that, you know, Alabama's come out in all of their past games and they run just RPOs on basically like every play on standard downs. I mean, they run more RPOs than like anybody, and it makes sense considering they have like the best RPO quarterback in football history, or college football history. LSU, like, so you want to take away RPOs, you play man, you play cover one, and, you know, you just give everybody, you say, you know, you put an extra guy in the box and everybody has a man, and like that's how you defend RPOs. Now, most teams don't have the personnel to do that on defense. LSU might. So I think one of the things that was worth discussing here is that Alabama's game plan is going to have to be a little bit different in this game, because they're not just going to be able to sit back and play RPOs. Now, granted, they'll be able to play some RPOs, and like, you know, on a lot of their RPOs that are packaged with slants, those rely sometimes on the corner beating, on the receiver beating, you know, man coverage against the corner, but they're not going to be able to run as many that like attack the middle of the field and stuff. So for the first time all year, Alabama's just going to have to call some pass all the way plays on standard downs. And I think that's like in the past when they've usually been shot plays. Now they're going to have to be, you know, just plays designed to pick up 10 yards.
Yeah.
The good news is that not a lot of those are on film.
Yep.
Alabama hasn't shown a lot of those. All the man beaters that Carter's referencing, like Alabama hasn't run like a lot of man beaters this year. We haven't seen like a lot of those sort of like pick plays, switch routes, stuff like that. Like just because it hasn't been necessary and because no team has been able to play Alabama in a way to force them to go into that bucket of plays. But the things that Alabama did that made them so unbelievably efficient in the first 8 games on offense, and they are the most efficient offense in the country on both passing and standard downs, which is crazy. But they're not going to be able to do, like, they might be as efficient in this game, right? But they're not going to be able to be as efficient in the same way.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a little more, you run a little more play action.
Yep. I agree.
I think we're going to see a definite, like a greater percentage of traditional play action as opposed to RPOs in this one.
And even just some straight dropbacks.
Oh yeah.
Just like some straight dropbacks and just relying on guys to beat their man or relying on to get them open.
Let Tua, get NFL scouts even more excited by putting some NFL style pass plays on film.
Yeah. But I think.
Oh, you worried he runs too many RPOs? Okay, well, here's this tape.
So one of the interesting things though is like, I trust the Alabama staff to come up with those sort of like NFL style man beaters, but they don't have a lot of NFL guys on staff anymore.
No. Although I think Enos, I think can be their guy in terms of certainly when he was offensive coordinator at Arkansas, they ran those type of plays.
Right. And it's also why I think it's probably good that this is where, it's always good to have the week off before LSU, but I think it's particularly good now to have the week off before LSU because you can't, when Alabama was like a run heavy team in the past, they were going to be run heavy against LSU too. Like there was no changing the way they were going to play a little bit. Like they have to change the way they're going to play a little bit now. So I think it's good that maybe they have sort of that like extra week, not necessarily for the players from the players' perspective, but at least from the coach's perspective to sort of, game plan for that stuff. What about running the ball? I think LSU, they're going to have to play with an extra man in the box, I think, a lot to combat the RPOs, which seems counterintuitive against such a prolific passing offense, but I think it's really the only way. Can Alabama run the ball against an extra man here? Like if LSU loads up the box?
I will say that LSU's on defense, standard down line yards per carry, 79th.
And that's with Devin White.
Yeah.
Georgia had some success running the ball. Mississippi State had some success running the ball when they ran their quarterback. But in the Georgia game.
Yeah, Nick Fitzgerald ran for a crap ton of yards. Granted, that's with the quarterback, which is, something we should definitely talk about. You've talked about this, the importance of Alabama wanting or being able to run the quarterback. Right. But, I haven't gone back and looked at the tape, but I'm pretty sure LSU was loading the box for playing Mississippi State because why the hell wouldn't you? Because Nick Fitzgerald what was it? Spencer Hall said something like, he throws like he has hooves for hands or something.
Great compliment. Just talk about the Georgia game for a second. DeAndre Swift carried the ball 12 times for 72 yards, 6 yards a carry. And Elijah Holyfield carried the ball 7 times for 56 yards. That's 8 yards a carry. Now, overall on the game, they were only at 5 yards per carry, but that was because of the sacks on the quarterback.
Yeah. The two backs were total 19 carries for 128 yards, which is more than 6 yards a pop.
So, that's excellent.
That's with a not like Jake Fromm was bad that day. He was 16 to 34 and threw 2 interceptions.
That was one of his worst days. So I think that there's an opportunity here for Alabama to be able to run the ball. I coming into these before I had really watched LSU, I was thinking I don't really like Alabama's chance to run the football. But some of these teams have had more success than I imagined they would running it against Alabama. So I think we could see some of that here. How, this is something that I've mentioned before on Twitter, like how contingent is Alabama's ability to run the ball, or how contingent is Alabama's ability to run the ball on Tua being able to run? Like, let's say Tua can't run at all. Let's say he's a total non-factor, and it's very obvious right away that he's just a non-factor, and LSU doesn't have to account for him at all in the running game. Can that version of Alabama run the football?
And they're not going to run all over him. I think they can have some success, especially if, later in the game they're. I don't know. I just think Tua's going to throw so well. It won't matter.
Yeah.
But it definitely doesn't help. But I don't know. I think they're like, depending on what the left guard situation is, Deontay Brown has been really good in the time that he's gotten. So,
and it's going to be him.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely going to be him.
I think there would be some drop off in efficiency. I don't know. Like, I feel like they should still be able to hit some big plays in the running game, though, regardless of.
Well, especially if LSU stacks the box. If LSU stacks the box, one guy takes one bad angle, and you could pretty easily pop one. If Tua can run, like if Tua really is healthy, the thing is that Alabama wants to run Tua. Like we saw earlier in the year when Tua was fully healthy, they ran like a lot. Like those plays in like the Louisville game, like they ran Tua like a pretty good amount, if I'm remembering correctly. In that LSU game.
It took well into the season with Tua having hurt his knee and Jalen getting steadily more time for Jalen to overtake Tua in rushing yards.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like if Tua can run this game, I don't think LSU has a chance to keep Alabama, like, I don't know, mid-30s would be like the minimum. If Alabama feels like they can run the quarterback, because I guess I'll put it this way: if ignoring even this specific matchup, if Tua can run, there's no way to stop this offense. There's just no way.
No.
There's just too many things that you have to account for. But like Tua not being able to run, that's like a big thing to be able to sort of check off the list, right, for the defense. The defense can say, okay, well, at least it's traditional running game that we have to deal with. We still have to deal with their RPOs. We still have to deal with their expansive passing game. Like,
oh, we lost him.
This happened. I don't know. Of course, this happened to me earlier too. But yeah. So
that is, but almost how necessary that is for so many teams.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry, you cut out for like 10 seconds.
Did I?
Yeah, we lost you for a bit there, but we agree with your point.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. It was just talking about how, Alabama can't be stopped
with the Tua run game. Alabama's offense goes from nigh unstoppable to unstoppable. Yeah, is the basic idea here.
Yeah. What do you guys think about Devin White not being able to play?
I think it was a bad call, but also this is what happens every time a player gets called for targeting in the second half of a game. Like, sorry, like you got, a bad call happened at a very inopportune moment. It sucks. Don't act like this is either like a conspiracy or like, I just think LSU fans are making this a way bigger thing than it actually is.
Here's the thing too. If this is all right, so from the SEC's perspective, because we're just assuming that if it is a conspiracy, that the SEC is trying to maximize their potential pay cut, I feel like they would want LSU to win this game.
Oh yeah, because the best scenario for the SEC to get two teams in is if LSU wins, wins the SEC. And like if last year's 11-1 Alabama got in, then this year's is. So like,
yeah. So it's not a conspiracy, folks. Sorry.
That's the thing that always gets me about conspiracy theories is when you follow it through to the logical conclusion and like the incentive structures don't even line up.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a conspiracy. I really do wish he could play though.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, we'll get to see him in the second half. I don't know if we'll see.
Will he see Tua? Will he see Tua?
I don't know. I was legitimately trying to think about if we see.
What are the odds? What are the odds that Tua and Devin White play like the same amount of this game?
Do we think Tua takes a fourth quarter snap?
Yeah,
that's fairly likely, right?
Yeah, I'll say so at this point.
Especially if Jalen's not 100%, and you don't.
Well, true. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not gonna put Mac Jones in up 20 points.
Right.
Unless it's like the last 4 minutes or something like that.
Right.
So in that case, I think it would, like, especially with Jalen, being iffy, I think it'll just be more like because Saban never used to play his backups all that much, even in blowouts, right? Like, how many instances can you think of this year where the Alabama backup quarterback played like significant snaps, aside from like the FCS games where they score 3 touchdowns in the first quarter or something like that? So I think it'll be more like other ones where
I'm thinking like those, like the 2013 team. Like the 2013 team was crushing. Like they were crushing some teams. Like in the middle of that season, like they destroyed like Arkansas and Tennessee and Kentucky in like 3 consecutive weeks. And like AJ played, if I remember correctly, like AJ played most of those games. Like AJ was in there for like most of the game. So yeah, I agree. Like it's not. I mean, and that's probably like there's probably a number of different reasons why it's different then. But yeah, I think Tua definitely takes a snap in the fourth quarter. I don't know if he finishes the game.
Oh, no, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
So what should the line be? If you guys were going to what do you think the line should be?
I mean, it's so hard to predict, right? Because you have to like project not only like we're not just projecting Tua playing for 4 quarters, right? Like there's always this change in incentive based on how the first part of the game goes. So
what if I told you that Tua was going to play the whole game?
Like 20, like low 20s maybe.
Oh, see, I'm assuming Tua plays the whole game only if it's actually tight.
Right. Because that changes it from a that's thinking about it. That's thinking about how the line should be, right? I'm thinking about it more as sort of a proxy to
if Alabama is trying to
talent difference between the teams, yeah.
If Alabama is trying to score at full bore the whole game, 24,
yeah, somewhere around there.
Man, you would have a lot of people betting on LSU. This is my favorite game. I just want to say that it's nothing to do with the specific matchups, but this is and this is probably different for older Alabama fans because like some of those rivalries, especially like the Tennessee rivalry, means more. It's like, it was more competitive at certain points. It's like less competitive for like our generation of fan. But Alabama, LSU in Death Valley is my absolute favorite college football game.
It doesn't get a lot better. And for me, I like it better than I like the Iron. Not like, I mean, I think it's because I like having grown up in Alabama in the Shula years. I hate Auburn more than anybody. just because I hate losing to them so much. So I actually like this game better than I like the Auburn game because I'm always more nervous going into a game against a good Auburn team because I hate losing to them so much. So, like, I don't know. Well, yeah, like when Alabama and LSU are both good and you're coming into this game with all the hype, I always get really, really hyped up for this game.
Yeah, I love like the 2011, 2012 games. Like those were just awesome. Like the hype leading into the game, and then like the actual game itself. Like that was like because like obviously like 2011 gets all the everybody remembers that because that was like 1 versus 2 and it was overtime. It was 9-6 and whatever. But like the next year was like 1 versus 5. Yeah. Like that was a great game too. I mean, that was obviously it was a great game, but like the hype was like great too. Like LSU. Probably if LSU wins that game, they are in a play-in game with Georgia to go to the national championship. So like, that very well might have like decided the national champion as well. And like this game isn't, I don't know if the stakes are, well, no, the stakes are pretty high. Like if LSU wins this game, they have a great chance to go to the playoff.
Yep.
I saw somebody give that I think it was like ESPN that said like with a win they would have like a 30% chance to go to the playoff. But I guess like so like
that's factoring in their chances to lose against A&M and Arkansas
and then Georgia probably
and Bryce and Georgia.
That's they're only S&P only gives them a 52% chance to beat Texas A&M. Yeah. So that game is basically a toss-up. I guess it's like LSU's a little better, but the game's in College Station, so 50 sounds right. Yeah. So the stakes maybe aren't quite as high for LSU because like this isn't one of those years where like, oh well, if they win, like they're definitely going. But they're gonna be number 1 in the college football playoff next week if they win this game.
Yep.
And 1 versus 3, like there hasn't been a lot of matchups like for Alabama in the past in the regular season that have been that high. Last year Alabama Florida was 1 versus 3, or Florida State, I'm sorry, was 1 versus 3, but that was like really earlier in the year before we actually knew how good anybody was. Like this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Even if we don't buy that we don't actually buy that LSU is the 3rd best team in the country.
Oh no. I mean, I'm excited for it, but my most desired result is that Alabama turns this into exactly what every other game has been and that the final score is like 49-10.
It would be so awesome if they blew them out.
I think there's a better chance of that happening than there is LSU winning this game.
Alabama hasn't. I wonder when the last time Alabama won by more than like 10 points in Red Stick has got to be like ages ago, right? Wasn't there a game in like 2000? Wasn't it like 2002? They beat him like 38-0 or something. There, I think maybe like Fran's first.
I wonder what the 1999 game was.
I think there was an early 2000s game where they really.
Oh, that was 23-17.
I think with Fran they blew them out, I think.
2002, 31-0.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That would have been Saban, too.
That's crazy. Was that like a bad LSU team?
They were 8-5. It was not one of Saban's better teams there.
Okay. So that was 2002. Yeah. So...
And Alabama hasn't scored more than 21 points in Baton Rouge since 2008.
That was the Bluegrass Miracle team as well. So the team that almost.
Oh, that was bad. Yeah, that was a bad team. Okay. So they and 2008, yeah. So they haven't scored more than 21. And 2008, they only had 21 before overtime, right? Wasn't the final score 27-21?
Yep.
Yeah. So in regulation they only had 21 points.
I feel fairly confident they're going to exceed that on Saturday.
Well, that was the thing, right? The last 2 times Alabama's played in Red Stick, like their offense has been terrible. That 2014 game with Blake Sims was like horrendous, and then 20, and then 20.
I was just looking the other day. Blake Sims, that's one of the like top 5 games in Alabama history in terms of passes thrown. Blake Sims threw like 49 passes in that game.
Yeah. Because and that was the thing. Like LSU was getting, well, they were just like running every play because they were just like playing like just for Alabama to make a mistake, which they eventually did at the end of the game. And Alabama just kept throwing with like no success. And then 2016, Alabama couldn't do anything offensively either. So I'm looking forward to a little bit of a different type of Alabama performance in Red Stick. That would be cool. We'll do score predictions now, I guess. Well, okay. So what do you guys think? So what are your score predictions for this?
I told my relatives who were in town this week for the wedding 42-20. So I'm sticking with that.
Okay. Mitch, you want to go?
I want them to score 50.
Oh man, that would be insane. I mean, that would be great. It could happen. It could. I'm not. So does S&P actually give a score, or do they just give a margin?
He like when he does the
on Thursday there will be projected scores.
Okay.
I'm gonna go 50 to 13.
I really like 13.
I really don't think that the fact that this game is in Baton Rouge is really that much of an advantage for them at all.
It's never Alabama playing on the road has never been a problem.
No.
Nope.
But in particular for like a team that has as much Louisiana talent as Alabama has, and like the fact that
we just don't know how Tua is going to perform under pressure. We just don't know that.
I think one of the most impressive things about the Saban Alabama teams is that there really is no difference between them at home versus them on the road. Like they have basically been every year like the same team. Their quality of performance has not changed, and that's kind of crazy. Because no other team is like that. Every other team is better at home, usually significantly better at home than they are on the road. But for Alabama, that's not really the case. They're just as likely to lose at home than they are on the road. I really like 13, but I can't go to 50. So I'm going to go 40. I'm going to go to 41 to 13.
All right. Well, that's it, y'all. We'll see y'all next week, hopefully celebrating the absolute meltdown of LSU fans and getting ready for another fairly big matchup against Mississippi State. But we'll see y'all next week, and Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.